Not all retail earnings have been that bad, even though many of them have. There you see Nordstrom surging 9% after hours. That's after it sees full-year adjusted EPS beating expectations, EPS beating expectations, and so forth. So there you go. A lot of retail names bad, but Nordstrom bucking the trend this quarter, up 9.6%.
All right, Joe. Well, of course, another key department store out there reporting, Macy's. The shares there falling. That's after the department store chain cut its full-year profit outlook, though the CEO telling investors the company is, quote, locked and loaded for the fourth quarter. Well, for more, let's bring in Bloomberg opinion columnist Sarah Halzack. She joins us right now from Washington. All right, Sarah, I read through this press release this morning. I listened to the conference call. It seemed a lot of the same. One thing that stood out at me was this idea that some of their underperformance might be related to their locations, particularly in some of these malls that aren't really doing all that well.
That's right. So they did mention that lower tier malls were a real drag on results in the quarter. And I think that's important because it kind of calls into question a major strategy, overarching strategy of Macy's, which is that it wants to keep open these stores in lower tier malls, but just shrink them and have fewer employees to make them more profitable. And I think this raises the question of whether or not that's really a good idea. Macy's probably ought to be considering a more aggressive store closure program. And I think these results kind of bring that to the fore.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, like with some of these big unicorns that went public, like Uber and WeWork, people get very interested in marginal unit costs. And I wonder if we have to sort of do the same analysis with a company like Macy's, where it's like trying to figure out which aspects of their business are still really profitable and thriving. What is working at Macy's still, and is there a version of Macy's out there in which it can be a sort of a consistently profitable business?
Yeah, I mean, Macy's does certainly have some valuable real estate. The 34th Street Herald Square location is a great example of that. And it's done a good job in the past of monetizing real estate by spinning it off and leasing it back. And so that's one way that it can become a healthier business. But at the end of the day, top line sales are key here, and it's just struggling on that front. I think its e-commerce results were a really good example of that this quarter. For the first time in 10 years, they had lower than double-digit growth in their e-commerce division. And when you consider the e-commerce market overall is growing about 15%, and that we see retailers like Target and Walmart putting up 30% digital growth on a much larger base, you've got to say to yourself, what is Macy's missing here? What is it doing wrong?
It's pretty damning that basically it's got to become a real estate company if it's going to make things work rather than a real retailer. And Sarah, they said, though, that they're locked and loaded for the next quarter. It seemed as though they're trying to say, look, the past is behind us. We've now got our inventories in check. We're going to make the most of the holiday season. Do you think they can?
We've heard that from Macy's before, and they thought they had their promotions locked and loaded last year for the holiday season, and they didn't. I think they have changed their loyalty program a bit in the last couple of years and are trying to figure out how to make that work within the framework of the holiday season. I have no doubt Macy's will be pulling out all the stops. That's the one thing you have to give it credit for, is it truly is pulling many, many levers, right? It's trying the off-price business. It's renovating its stores. There are a few, it is dabbling in rental and resale and consignment models. It is really throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall. The problem is, it just, when you look at those top line numbers, it doesn't seem to be working.